Joining me now is Krish O'Mara Vignarajah, Global Refuge President and CEO and former White House Policy Director for First Lady Michelle Obama. Krish, it's great to have you back on the show. How concerned are you by the spreading of legislation like SB4 to other states, including some that are nowhere near the U.S. border with Mexico?
Deeply concerned. We were worried that there would be a domino effect, and clearly what we are seeing is that going into an election cycle, immigrants are being used as political pawns. We are deeply troubled with the dynamic and what it means. If each individual state were allowed to implement their own immigration laws, we will have complete and utter chaos.
How unconstitutional do you think SB4 and other bills that are variants of it are?
I think that the courts will weigh in, and I think they will be struck down, just as we saw years ago when Arizona passed a show your papers law. The reality is that when it comes to immigration, a unified approach is not just essential for maintaining order, fairness, the integrity of our nation's laws, but that is precisely why we have the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution. And so I do believe that courts will deem these both illegal and unconstitutional, but also they're impractical. Law enforcement is going to have difficulties implementing them. Migrants will have experience a chilling effect where they're not going to be willing to come forward to report crimes, to be helpful. And then, of course, this is going to have a significant impact on economies, because we have seen when states, when localities institute these kinds of policies, immigrants know the chaos, the impact that they're going to have on their lives, and we will see migrants choose to go elsewhere.
This comes as Texas's SB4 faces backlash. It recently was blocked by a federal appeals court after the Supreme Court actually allowed the bill to go into effect. What are the chances you think that this new Iowa bill could face that same pushback from an appeals court?
I think we will expect to see that. That has been the dynamic that we've seen so far. There's obviously clear legal precedent now that judges will be able to weigh in on. Ultimately, I wouldn't be surprised if this does go to the Supreme Court. But my hope is that states like Texas, Iowa, who have really undertaken some political grandstanding to score political points, will realize that it's illegal, it's unconstitutional, and it is inhumane to the families they're affecting.
I'm sure you've seen, but like many GOP governors, Kim Reynolds has been a harsh critic of Biden's immigration policy. She's deployed the National Guard to support Texas Governor Greg Abbott's anti-immigrant crackdown and has made several trips to the U.S.-Mexico border in the last few years. Why all these theatrics, do you think, for a state that's almost 1,000 miles away from the border? I mean, the cynic in me wants to say maybe she's auditioning for a position in a future Trump administration.
Well, I won't weigh into the politics of whether this is an audition, but I will say that it is unusual when you're seeing states that are far in the interior who seem like they want to participate in kind of this political game that we are seeing. And it's troubling because obviously, we know that immigration is a top issue. We know that it is going to become even more so going into the presidential. But the reality is, even today, there was an op-ed showing that 1,100 counties in the U.S. would be experiencing population decline, but for immigration. And so I think that's where we have an opportunity to explain that immigration is not just the right thing to do. It's a smart thing to do for a country, for counties that are, facing the lowest birth rate since the census has been tracking this issue. Our economy needs these workers, and we need to stop fear-mongering and implementing these unconstitutional policies.
Yeah, such an important point as well. Krish O'Mara Vignarajah, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate your time. As always, great to have you back on the show.